Oh, shoot. This is on the sheet. Let's set the antenna. Well, good morning, everybody. Well, it isn't really a good morning as far as the weather is concerned outside, but this is Patricia and David, as usual, of Gulf Harbour Radio from just north of Auckland, where we have, listen to this, thunder, rain, lightning, miserable visibility. The temperature is not all that grim, 16 degrees, which is a bit down from what we've had, but still nothing that grim. And currently not much wind, about a knot from the northwest at the moment. And the bar is actually rising. If you have seen the weather map for New Zealand, it is absolutely diabolical. How many fronts and troughs did you say that you found on there? It's a lot. Anyway, 1010.1 and rising. Just absolutely grim. And if we sound a bit sleepy, we are, because this weather started at 2:14 a.m. this morning. A massive squall hit the house at 2:14. We are on a ridge, so we get everything that's going. And then it was just sort of on and off from there as things happened in the atmosphere. We just have all this stuff passing over us, so not very pleasant. And actually an interesting report from Trigger. They left Whangarei yesterday, I think it was. They're at 33 south and 174.53. So let's call it 33 and 175 east. And he's doing 9 knots, which in that big catamaran, I suppose, is sort of fairly normal. But they've got west-southwest 21 out there, west-southwest 21, which is why they're screaming along. The westerly swell is only 1 metre, 30% cloud cover, and there is some CV activity around, but not on them. Cumulonimbus. We must remember to say that for those people that don't understand the CV abbreviation. Cumulonimbus cloud, those big, towering, wondrous things that come at 2:15 in the morning and dump an awful lot of rain and wind change directions and stuff like that. But anyway, for those that are out there, hope you've had a much more pleasant night than we've had. In fact, it sounds pretty good up there in the islands, although it looks a bit turbulent. The boats in Fiji are reporting fairly light winds. In Suva, it's northeast, very light. Another adventure is heading towards Port Vila with southeast of 12 and only 10% cloud. So what's Mesatoya? Oh, up in the Asavas, 10 to 15 from the east. So much more pleasant in your part of the world. And it does look, I haven't seen anything much from, oh, here's Whangarei. It looks like we've got the worst of this weather. It looks like it's passed over Opua and Whangarei, because Eagles Wing report just 3 knots of northwest wind and the rain has just ended there, 1011.5. So I suspect that it's even better in Opua, where heatwave have just arrived. Bit of a circular route from Picton, but there you have it. Good, exciting stuff. Is there anybody that wants anything before I go on to a little bit of a news update? God, it looks grim outside. And unfortunately, both David and I had to take off this morning. All right, let's just cover a little bit of news. You probably chuckle at the things that I pick out. But I'll tell you what, there's not an awful lot of interesting stuff. And I bet you're absolutely surprised that Kim Jong-un has threatened to pull out of the big summit. I wish we could have, and I suppose in a couple of generations' time, as I'm talking, we could have a poll and you could all report in as to whether you thought that summit with Mr. Trump would ever go ahead. I bet many of you, the majority, would say, nah. But anyway, he has decided he has to get rid of his nuclear arsenal, that he's not interested in talking to Mr. Trump.
7.62.
7.62. What's that all about?
Well, that's the caliber
Oh,
of the
that's
round.
the caliber of the round that David would use. Goodness, that's not very politically correct. All right, going on to more local and interesting things. We have, and I think they do this in New York, which is where we've copied it from. The Sky Tower is, of course, the tallest building in New Zealand, and once a year, the firemen all decide to run to the top with 25 kilograms of weight on board. We often see them actually jogging around here in practice, but there's going to be 950 of them attempt this on Saturday. And one guy, who's 35 years old, he has won it 7 years in a row. It's to raise funds for the leukemia children in New Zealand. So this guy, there's a bit of an article about him in the paper. It all started when several of these firemen recruits were flatting together. And of course it was a bit of a challenge. And this guy has won it 7 years in a row. So that'll be interesting to see. Talking about competitions, the Vikings have really challenged New Zealand. New Zealand and Norway have about the same number of people, 4.5 million people each in our two different countries. They, of course, have the Northern Lights and we have the Southern Lights, and there's a lot of similarities. But a big problem has arisen. We have the pavlova, but they have just broken the New Zealand record for the biggest pavlova. We had the record at 50 square metres, which is rather a large pavlova, and they have just, with the help of a lot of chefs, done a 85 square metre pavlova. It used 4,200 egg whites, 800 litres of cream, 200 baskets of raspberries, and 150 baskets of blueberries. Can you imagine? I don't know what size a basket is, but that seems to be a lot of raspberries and blueberries. Personally, I don't think that's a legal pavlova because it doesn't have any kiwi fruit on it. And of course, you wouldn't get away with that in New Zealand, not having sliced kiwi fruit on a pavlova. I mean, the big decision in New Zealand as to whether to use gold kiwi fruit or green kiwi fruit, but you do have to have kiwi fruit on a pavlova. So there is a bit of a challenge for New Zealand, a bit of détente between the two of us at the moment. Continuing the discussion on the stresses of living on land, and I like to sort of tell you a bit about this so that it makes any little troubles that you have at sea that much smaller. But yesterday I got a letter in the post, and that's quite an unusual thing for me to get a letter. Most of the stuff that comes in here is for David. But anyway, I got this letter from Westpac. It's my resident withholding tax deduction certificate. Now, we have a tax year that ends in March, so you'd think with computers that I would have got it a little bit before the middle of May. But I didn't expect that it would be an absolutely useless piece of paper. My resident withholding tax deducted for the last year is 0.04 cents. Now, our mail costs over $1 now to send, put a stamp on the letter. And I'm sure that this piece of paper with a nice letterhead and everything on it cost a little bit. So 4 cents. I don't really think I'm going to be contacting the IRD, that's our tax department, to tell them about my 4 cents of deductions. Do you? So as per many things that come into the mailbox here, it'll go straight in the rubbish bin. So you don't have to deal with that when you're at sea. We used to get our mail about once a year from our friendly accountant in Santa Rosa, California. And it was really good because most of it you got ignored because whatever it was had sorted itself out. Anything else? No, nothing much else to report.
Yeah, well, how about went to the doctor, I guess about 3 weeks or so ago. And I normally pay about 6 months in advance for the visits because he's in Tauranga. The only reason I go that far is because he's a sailor and we've been friends for about 25 years. So anyway, my payments that I've been giving sort of ran out. So I owed them 50 cents. 50 cents. So I got a bill. And there it was. You owe us 50 cents, but there's a $5 handling fee. Well, that went in the trash can too.
Yes. It's very stressful for a heart patient. All right, there's a few people leaving this morning, so I think we better get on to weather fairly quickly. Andiamo is in Marsden, and they're going to head off, and so is Anahata, I think. So we'll see what David's got in store for you folks. I'm glad that the torrential weather that we've got down here is cast from you guys up there, but I'll just see if there's anybody that's out there in the islands wants to say anything before we switch to weather. There is somebody there. I'm not sure who it is. It's a very, very light voice. I think it's a lady's voice. Was that Slow Flight? Over.
Anthea?
Oh, it's Anthea. Gosh, that's much quicker and easier to hear. Yeah, you must have just clipped the microphone halfway through, Anthea. What is it like at Raoul at the moment? Over.
We had a rainy and slightly squally night, and the wind seems to be wanting to do back a little bit now, but we're kind of in between the northerly and the northwesterly. Over.
Oh, that's good to know. So it's starting to do something constructive for you. Might have to have a cup of tea and a slow breakfast. Ooh, there's another roll of thunder.
It'll be southerly quadrant later.
It will be southerly quadrant later, he says beside me here. So, yep, you might as well just leisurely get the boat ready to move. So that will be good. I'm pleased. I'm sure you'll be pleased to leave there. Over.
Absolutely, it's been a delightful place way out strong northerly, and lots of small projects have gotten done on board. Over.
Yeah, it's a good idea to have done that rather than pound yourselves and the boat. And even folk, if you haven't got a nice little cove like that to fall into, you know, there's something to be said for heaving to when you get these sorts of situations, just to have a rest, let the boat rest and not get any damage,
Absolutely.
and then travel on when the conditions improve. All right, I suspect David will cover a little bit of that for you to see what you've got ahead of you. So I'm going to pass the microphone now because he's got quite a bit. And it's not all that clear, is it? So you're going to have to listen carefully this morning. Here's David.
Well, good morning, and Patricia's right. I'm going to cover virtually from today out a week, because I know we've got a ton of boats that are ready to go, quite anxious to get moving, all prepared and so forth. So it's not the best of news, it's not the worst of news.
Oh,
is that a book? All right, a quick look at 500 millibar this morning finds our ridge off to the east. The axis is near 158. Now, the New Zealand trough has its vorticity axis, the area of spin. That's about over the date line right now. And we have another shortwave, left-leaning shortwave over upper Queensland. So let's look now at the surface and what these upper levels have produced for us. So underneath the upper eastern ridge, we find our high, and it's fairly strong. Central pressure about 1027 this morning, and it's located near 33 and 158 east. Now, it sounds like it's quite a ways away, but it does play a very big role in our weather heading towards the islands, because all of the easterly quadrant winds that we'll be talking about are coming from that particular high. Now, looking at the New Zealand area, well, as Patricia said, the synoptic chart is frankly shocking. I count over 14 fronts and troughs. Well, it's a spectacular sight, I'll tell you. 6 of these are over or near the North Island. And of course, the one we had last night was a real zinger. One of the fronts now by lunch runs to 30 and 180, 30 south, and the date line. And then it goes on to New Caledonia and trying to get to southern Vanuatu. Now, moving west, we find a ridge entering the Tasman. Now, its mother, or rather the high's center, so this high is extending a ridge to the east. So that center is still in the Australian Bight, and it's pretty much stationary. Central pressure, it's very strong, 1036 millibar. Now the ridge keeps extending east, and on Friday it will get to roughly the date line. So at that point, south of 35, winds will be generally westerly winds. Now there are lows in the Southern Ocean, and there have been lows now, just one after the other for the last month. And they're providing pretty cold and wet air to clash with the less dense air that's in the ridge that's building. So the result of all that is a great deal of convective activity from 35 south down to 50 south. So it's not that you're going to be down there, but they are producing sea and swell that's moving up. And I do have data on that. We basically have got 6 meters west of Cook Strait, and that extends all the way up to 90 Mile Beach. North of there, it drops considerably, about 4 meters, and then north of probably 30, we're looking at about 3 meters. So it's not real bad, but at least for the most part, they'll be behind you if you leave. Now, also on Saturday, winds from the eastern high, the one toward French Polynesia, that's going to provide easterlies for Tonga and Fiji, and then they'll turn northeast near Vanuatu and clash with the winds from the ridge to the west. And that'll maintain a trough over the New Cal, maybe Anishu area. This is Saturday, so a couple of days from now. So considering the passage north at this point in time and factoring all of the upper level activity that we've been talking about and the numerous fronts that are quite clearly there and troughs that are affecting the Southwest Pacific, I think you've got to determine what's important to you in terms of making a passage. For instance, Friday, from a wind direction and speed aspect, departing looks pretty good. But by Saturday, a frontal band will probably catch you up. Now, this band is relatively weak, but squalls reside in these bands, and they could be bothersome at times, as many of you know. So, do you care? It's the question that you have to ask yourself. By Sunday, the winds from Opua up to about 30 south are westerlies, fairly light to moderate, so that's not so bad. Sounds good. And on Monday, we have westerlies. Now, a lot of people are thinking about going on Monday. So at that point, we'll see a trough over New Zealand. The wind, like I said, will be westerly quadrant, 20 knots in the mean. And when I say the mean, I'm talking about the arithmetic mean. So you'll have gusts that are higher than that, and the winds actually could be a little less from time to time. So 15 to 25, gusts maybe to 30. So it'll be a little sporty, but it's all doable. And at 30 south, the air gets lighter. So if you bear with the conditions as you leave on Monday, once you finally get a little bit further north, it eases up considerably. Now on Tuesday, there's a frontal band situated, if you mark 30 south and 175 west, and then draw a line to the loyalties, that's your frontal band right there. That's on Tuesday. So the winds are going to be fairly variable to the south of that band, although southwest further to the west as the new ridge starts to push in. And there are light northerlies north of the band, so that means some headwinds, but they don't last long. By Wednesday the 23rd, the Australian high is still in place in the Bight. It is indeed a blocking high, and it's ridging all the way to about 175 east, so it's not quite going as far east as it was before. There is another trough then over New Zealand, and that's going to be annoying. The winds west to southwest, 20 to 25. In fact, southwest winds all the way up to 25 south. Now, by Thursday of next week, all looks pretty good on GFS. southwest 15 near New Zealand, southerlies up to 25 south, and about 15 knots southeasterlies to the islands. Yes, that Thursday looks like a very nice day, and that I believe is the 24th. However, the EC, that's the model, ECNWF, they believe a frontal band is going to cross New Zealand. So Friday, the 25th, is their idea of a very nice day. So what is the departure day? Today or tomorrow is feasible. A little hiccup at 25 south on Tuesday, but then it's okay from there. Many of you again are looking at the Monday time frame. So GFS talks about it being a little bit gustier and whatnot, westerlies near land and so forth. The further offshore it eases. EC calls off slightly worse conditions. But by Friday, if you were to keep on going, the winds are northeast at 25 south. So that's on the nose. So as you can see, everything is in a state of flux. Now, perhaps it may be best, some of you may think this, so we've had a couple of emails. People were looking at Friday or Saturday, the 25th or 26th, a little bit later. That's a little too far out, as you all know, to be sure. But long-range progs show a rather nasty low that's possibly forming south of Fiji. Not a good look at all, but at least the blocking high has moved. And it's not blocking anymore. It's shifted east, and it will be in the Tasman Sea. So there is a possibility that maybe the 25th or 26th could be okay, whether or not that low develops to the north. This is coming from GFS, which, as you know by now, tends to overwork things a bit, and that low may not happen at all. So it might be a passage state, and it's a wait and see on that one. So this is all a very tough decision to make. I guess rest assured that we'll be here to report what we can to help. If it's any consolation, over the next week, starting actually from today, I don't see anything evil out there. There's no tropical cyclones, as an example. And this next week is, in general, it's doable, but it's going to be a pain. Sort of the price maybe you pay to get to paradise. I don't know. So you'll have to decide what you're going to do. Let us know. And every day we'll be giving you the weather pretty much as we're doing it now, until everybody's up in the islands, and then we'll go back to the normal format. So up in the islands, quickly looking at Tonga, there's a fair amount of cloud that's observed on satellite imagery early this morning. Some troughing to the south of Tongatapu. So expect cloudy periods with scattered showers, I'd say, for the group, and about the same thing tomorrow. Southeast winds about 10 to 15 knots for the Hawaii's and 15 to 20 for the Laval area. Now Fiji has cloud scattered about, especially Viti Levu and Kundabu. Some of these bands are over the Asauas as well, just west of the Asauas. Now, the microwave satellite did get a bit of that this morning, shows fresh winds, mostly easterlies, about 20 knots. But Fiji Met is sticking with what they call a strong wind warning for all Fiji waters. But I'm going to stick with what the satellite indicates, and I believe this afternoon we'll be seeing about 10 to 15 knots. So, I don't know. We'll see if Fiji is right. But in my view, it's going to be a little bit lighter today. Vanuatu is looking decent from Erromango to Anishan, but as you go further north, the cloud definitely builds. Santo and the banks, well, it looks like rain to me. These clouds will be mostly around that area, so and further south. So to be safe, we'll say up and down the group, we'll call for brief showers every now and again. Winds southeast about 15 to 20. And areas in the north a wee bit lighter. And poor New Caledonia is still under the trough, so we're looking at cloud and showers in the southern lagoon. That'll be the ticket for today. The winds a pretty steady southeast 15 to 20, and the winds will be about the same thing tomorrow. So that's it from us. Any of you have got questions, come now. Let us know when you do go. Those of you that are on passage, I think you've got the general idea what's happening. But just keep plugging along if you're underway, and we'll be talking to you tomorrow. So I'll pass this over to the chief.
I'll do a war cry. Yeah, I just read the streaming messages a bit more carefully, and Andiamo are going to pass on heading to Fiji today. They're going to head on up to join the mob at Bay of Islands in Opua. So there'll be quite a gathering up there, getting analysis paralysis, I'm sure. Is there anybody with any specific questions for David? Nothing heard, and since the net started, we have had the end, sort of the end of the rain. I think it's not raining at the moment, so it looks like it has indeed decided to pass us by mostly, or the worst of it anyway. Haven't seen any thunder and lightning either. So it looks like it might improve a little bit for our getting out and about. All right. One of the 6 troughs that are going to be passing by today. Okay, folks, that's it from us. Short and sweet today, unless you need anything, but it looks like most people are either sitting or on their way. So we will be back again tomorrow morning, Friday morning, and we will pick it up then to see what the weekend and next week might allow. We are, of course, here on Saturday, so we can certainly update in the next couple of days before we take our break on Sunday. Don't forget, if you want anything specific, our email address is ghradio@extra.co.nz. So if you haven't quite understood David, and many of you don't have English as a first language, and you'd have to have American English as a second language. So if you need clarification, by all means send an email, and we'll sort out specifically what your needs are. Okay, everybody, the frequency is all yours. We'll be back again tomorrow morning. Cheers. Bye.